on this aircraft, those from the 233 Squadron based at Lakefield Park, Wiltshire. The units engaged in the D-Day landings of June 1944. The residents of the aircraft the chances are that it was closer to the German base than they were to the English one. Now I think we're going to give you one final word here. The aircraft are setting themselves up for a final strike. And leading the way comes the two SE-5As, the normal aircraft flight from 1970. And behind them come the two youngest Sea-Old trench strafers, flown today by Alex Truman and Richie Piper. The two SE-5As big one with David Binney, the 5,000. Tremendous and majestic sight as ever as Sally B flies past. Europe's last ever Boeing B-17 flying fortress, operated of course from Dunsford by B-17 Preservation and the private operators based here under the leadership of Lee Salicko, as has been the case now for, would you believe, 39 years. Yes, this is how long this heavy four-engine Second World War bomber has been kept airworthy in private hands in the UK by B-17 Preservation, an organisation that receives nothing in the way of official support. And of course, operating any historic aircraft is an expensive business. Well, just imagine the sort of expense that must be required to keep in the air a four-engine wartime bomber like this. It's been a constant struggle, and funds are always required to help keep the B-17 flying. Not to see it running in there, as it were, over the top from our perspective of the American Air Museum, which, like this aircraft, honours the Allied airmen, specifically the American airmen, who gave their lives during the Second World War. Today, the aircraft being captained by Andrew Dixon, with the first officer now tackling also on Catalina. Yeah, the aircraft marked up as one of the 5th Emergency Rescue Squadron and some OA-10A version of the Catalina. The US Army Air Force airplane. If you go to the American Air Museum and look at the sculpture, as it were, displaying outside. Give it a wave anyway, ladies and gentlemen. Night War Display Team. synchronized school turns. Very, very nice. Next up, it's the elegant barrel remaining all in the formation. Dave Fullerton positioned just behind below Richard Grace in the lead. 5 feet separation between the aircraft. As near to real life situations as possible around coasts. During the year, they will regularly concentrate on search and rescue living costs. To ask if they would like to take part in this. SH558 and 2 minutes. Red arrows colours and number 4 flying training. Extraordinary to think when you see the shape of that big delta wing. That was designed by the same man on Olympus to 2 engines. About 16,500 miles of standard thrust to each of them, 65,000 miles in total. Was in order to keep the aircraft in front of us and not to go too far away. Don't use the power for too long. And also, we're trying very hard to conserve the life of these engines. At the moment, she's probably fit to fly until the end of 2015. We're trying to conserve engine cycles, and she may be able to fly longer. And as you see, she can also tiptoe up on you, making very little noise. The Royal Air Force got its first Falcon in 1956. Designed, as I suggested, to carry the British nuclear deterrent during the Cold War. And of course, it's 25 years this year since the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the European communist regimes. Time Falcons had the awesome responsibility of carrying nuclear deterrent to the Royal Navy, and they became low-level tactical conventional bombers. And also, some of them became tankers and counter-reconnaissance aircraft, and they changed colour from the brilliant anti-nuclear flash white represents all the Vulcan squadrons of the 1970s. All doors open. Inside the bomb bay there. That was the weapons bay that carried 21 1,000-pound bombs all the way